to start working on multiple page documents today. It's a little bit more challenging. An important part of that is setting up the items that you want to appear on your master pages. In this activity, you'll begin to work on multiple page documents. I've already started one for you. So to open that, we're going to go to File, Open. On our desktop, you're going to go and you will find your training files, section 2, Rocket Report folder. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so you can see which file I'm looking for. And we're going to work with Rocket Report Working Copy, which is the second one in this list of InDesign files. Press Open. So this is a 4-page newsletter that, like I said, already has some things completed that we are going to finish. So you can see here the font's not found, unimportant for us at this point. So like I said, I've started some of this for you, and we're going to fill in the blanks so that we can learn some different skills. So note that this document was set up with a bleed area. Behind the banner, there's a gray filled rectangle, and then there's a red rule line at the top and at the bottom, and those both extend beyond the page. So you can see here, here's our page, and then we've got those things extending out to the bleed area. To review, that was set up under File, Document Setup when the document was started, so that was set up right in this area. The bleed area is set up with about 1/8 of an inch, and that gives us guides so we know how far to extend things beyond the page. So what things do we have to think about when we create a multiple page document? Typically, we'll have some things that repeat on each page, like the page number, or we might have some design elements that help bring continuity to our publication. When we have repeating elements that stay on every page, we put those elements on what we call a master page, rather than creating those multiple times. So we're going to go over here to our Pages tab, which I already have open, and you'll see that I already have a master page created. InDesign automatically creates one for us by default, and they call it a master. So we're going to select that just to see how the master page works. So I'm going to just double click on it. At the top of the master page, I've already put a red line that spans from the left margin to the right margin. It's really hard to see that because the margin lines are also showing in purple. So at the bottom of the tool panel, you'll see an icon for normal view, which is what we're in now, or an icon for preview, which shows us how we would print things, and it hides the guides and margins that won't print. So if I click on preview, you can see the line I created at the top and the bottom are now visible. We're going to flip back and forth between preview and normal quite frequently, so it's really important that we kind of know the shortcut for this. So the shortcut to go from preview to normal and normal to preview is Shift W. And then we would just press Shift W again to leave it, or we can come over here and just press normal. Now we're going to set up a page number on the master page. So we're going to zoom in to the lower left-hand corner of this document. With the type tool, we're going to drag a type form. I'm putting it right below the margin line, so I'm going to actually come in here and adjust it a little bit. You can put things outside of the margin line and they'll print just fine. So this will print perfectly fine. In that frame, I'm going to type in PAGE with a space. I'm not going to type a number 1 here because that would put a number 1 on every single page. Instead, I need a marker. So in the type menu, I'm going to go to Insert Special Character, and I'm going to go to Marker, and I'm going to put Current Page Number. It puts a capital A there as a placeholder, but later you'll see that it is actually the page number that we're on. So we also need that number in the lower left-hand corner as well. And I'm going to just move this in right there so I have it lined up with this margin and this margin. And I'm going to just paste that on the other side. Move it into the same spot here. You can see that I want it to line up here though, so it's still, because I copied it from the other page, it's justified to the left, and I want it justified to the right. So I'm going to just double click in this font box, or text box, sorry, and I'm going to come up here, tell it to justify it the other way, so now it's lined up the same way as the other one. And remember, always go to the selector tool to get out of that. Another thing that would be convenient to have on our master page are column guides. You can do multiple column guides under layout, margins and columns, and then you have choices from there. You'll see that you can easily change margins on the fly. You can also set the number of columns here. I'm going to make it 4 columns and increase the gutter. That's the page between the 2 columns by just adding a little bit by pressing the up arrow and then pressing OK. So not only is the gutter the space between the 2 pages, it's the space between each column. I'm going to press OK. Now, just because I have 4 columns in each page doesn't mean that everything has to be just 1 column wide. It just gives me a base so that things can line up. So you can see I have 4 columns on each side. So this is our master page. A couple of other things that'll help us line things up when we're working on this page are invisible guides called ruler guides. They don't print, but they help us line things up. So with the selection tool, the way to get that ruler guide is to simply click on the ruler and drag that down onto the page. Now remember, I have that red line at the top of the page, and I don't want anything to touch that on the pages. So I'm going to drag the ruler down to about 1/8 of an inch below that ruler line. But you can see I only have that ruler line on one side. So I could just come over here and I could pull another one down. Or I can come off to the side here that's not on the document, and that gets a ruler line on both pages. I want the bottom to have one of those as well. So I'm going to just come up here. I'm going to drag the ruler down. There's my, oops, I didn't get both sides. There we go. There's my line. I'm going to go just 1/8 of an inch up so that nothing touches that red line. We have this master page set up. We might want a second master page. This could be if you want a few pages that have just a few extra things. In this case, we're going to create a second master page for what we're going to call our special reports. The way master pages works is you are going to use a parent-child relationship with the master pages. So master page A, which is the one we're currently on, is going to be the parent page. If I go up to the pages panel and look under the option menu, you'll see that I can create a new master page. So we're going to click on that. It's going to bring up this window. InDesign automatically labels them with an alphabet letter in the order to create them. So our first one is A, this one would be B, the next one would be C, and so on. But you can rename the master pages so that it makes sense for your project. So under name here, I'm going to rename this special reports because that makes sense for our project. I can also have it based on the page, based on another page. So the default is none, but that wouldn't give me a parent-child relationship. So I want this to be based on master page A. So B will have everything that A has. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And you can see here I now have master page A and I have B special reports. So on this page, I want to put a marker at the top that says this article is a special report. and I want to use the rocket from the first page of my document as an indicator. So we're going to go to Pages, click on the first page, and we want to use this rocket. So the easiest way to get content from one page to another page is by using what we call the content collector. So that's over here in the toolbar, and it looks like a box full of little boxes. So we're going to click on that, and it's going to bring up this window, which is going to be where whatever content we collect would go. And the way to add stuff to that collector is just going up and clicking on it. So you can see now that rocket is in our content collector. So now we can take that rocket and we can put it on the other page. So we're going to go back to our pages, back to special reports, and I want it up here in the right hand corner. So now I need to go to the content placer, which is right next to the content collector. So the content collector has an arrow going in, content placer has an arrow going out. And you can see that it's loaded that rocket, and I can just come in here and it puts that rocket on the page for me. When I'm finished placing the content from the content collector, I can just close out of that. Now let's take a closer look at that rocket. So I'm going to go back to the select tool, and I'm going to just zoom in to that rocket up here. First, I need to rotate it. So there are tools that can help us manipulate our graphics. So under the Options Object menu, we can transform, we can move, scale, rotate. Scaling from here means that I don't have to hold down my Command and Shift, and I can simply type in the percent that I'd like it scaled, and it'll do that. So I want it to be scaled 50%. I'm going to press OK. You can see that it scaled it down 50%. I'm going to undo that so that we can talk about a couple other transformations. So I'm going to actually move it down away from that red line just so we can see how things work. So under Object, I can rotate. So this allows me an easy way to rotate it. I can type in the degrees that I want it to rotate. Or with the selection tool, I can come over here to the box, and you can see as I move toward the edge, it comes with a curved arrow, and I can just turn that. I'm going to turn it so that the arrowhead is parallel to the bottom. Okay, and now we can move that up. You can see it's parallel there. Okay, so move that back down, maybe move it a little bit more. And you can do that at any corner. There we go. Other things I can do in the object menu under transform is I can do something called a shear. And that would distort the rocket. So let's do a shear angle of 25. You can see that it distorted that rocket. Not exactly what I want here, but it's a good tool to know how to use. So I'm going to undo that. So I'm going to actually make this a little bit smaller. So I'm going to just hold Shift down. Oops. So I want to make the rocket smaller. So I'm just making it smaller here. You can see now I can make that frame the same size. Move it up here. I want it a little bit more tilted so it's more parallel. We can even make it a little bit smaller. I just did that by doing Command Shift. And I can move it over here because we're going to add some more words in here. So I also want this master page to say at the top, special report. So soon we're going to learn about the paragraph style you can use to apply paragraphs in type format. I've set up a couple already. I'm going to use one here. Besides formatting it with a paragraph style, I can also make it that red. So I'm going to just make a text box here that says special reports. So we're going to go down to paragraph styles, which I already have some set up, like I said before. So besides that, I'm going to make it that red, which I've already put in the swatches panel. So I'm going to highlight it. You can make it the subhead, normal, headline. We're going to just make it the subhead. So all I did was I went to paragraph styles, and then I clicked on subheads. And I also want to make it that red, which you can see I've already put in the swatches panel for you. Rocket red, and now they match. And I'm going to just line this up here, move it down a little bit, move my rocket over. I'm going to just place this so that it looks how I want it. Okay, and we can see how that looks. Preview. Alright, so this is one thing that makes B different from A, is that I have this at the top. Another change I want to make to my special report master is that it's only going to be 3 columns. So I'm going to go up to layout, margins and columns, and I'm going to go from 4 columns to 3 columns and press OK. So that's master page B. We also have master page A. So here's B. You can see that it has the page number still. It still has those ruler lines. Okay, the difference is it's got the special reports at the top, and it has 3 columns as opposed to 4. So now let's go to page 1 of our newsletter, which is our first real page, and we're going to start filling that out. So the first thing we're going to do is put a story that's already been typed. It was typed in Word. One thing I noticed though before I do that is that if you look down at the bottom right hand corner, you're going to say that it says page 1. That's because we put a page number on our master page. We don't really need to tell our reader that this is page 1. They probably already know that. So if I want to get that off of the first page, but because it was created on the master page, it's there. I can't just select and delete it. So there's a keyboard shortcut that I can use to detach this from the master page to remove it just from this page. So the shortcut is Shift Command, and then I'm going to click on the element. You'll see that it selects it. Now I can edit it or simply delete it. So I can press delete, and you can see that I'm now ready to work on page 1 of our story. So like I said, this story's already been typed, so I have to go and find the file and place the story from the section 2 folder. So like I said, that story's already been typed, so all I have to do is go to File, Place, and go get the story from the section 2 folder in the Rocket Report folder, and the name of that file is From the Desk of the Principal. So here it is. I'm going to make it bigger so you can see that. And I'm going to press Open. When I click Open, it'll load my cursor. If I just clicked in the column, it would fill that skinny column with my story and bump it to the margin at the bottom. but I don't really want this in 3 skinny columns. I want it to span over all 3 columns. So I'm going to undo what I just did. You can see it's reloaded, and I'm going to click and drag across my 3 columns and fill that space in. And that's how I would place a story that I've already typed. Now that we know about master pages and you understand the relationship between multiple pages, we're going to use the second master page in our next lesson.